Alrighty, happy Saturday, everybody. Hope y'all ready to lock in. It is time for some college football. I'm going to run through my whole card. Got a nice little set for those of you that followed last weekend. 8-3, not too shabby. Let's get it started in the same exact spot with the Colorado Buffs. I'm laying the 3. It's the hottest ticket in the sports book this weekend. And it's not nearly as much Colorado. As great as Colorado was, Nebraska was painful to watch against Minnesota. Sims is a cute little dual threat, but 6 yards per attempt doesn't scare me. Colorado's defense, opportunistic, was probably the best thing you could say against TCU. The pace of play for their offense definitely didn't help. I do think that pace is going to get slowed down. Nebraska held Minnesota to just 3.6 yards per play last week. That's actually double what Colorado had. I'm just beyond pumped to watch Colorado again. Again, I have my future over 3.5 wins, got a couple units on it, so we're looking at very good there. My second game, Notre Dame, we're going to lay it with the Irish 7.5. 7.5 on the road at NC State. Sam Hartman was human against Tennessee State, but let's not act like that was not by design. The Irish don't play a whole lot of tune-up games, and they weren't showing anything. Just getting their guys reps. They draw the Wolfpack, who were wildly underwhelming in their 24-14 win over UConn. Brennan Armstrong, for those of you that have listened to me for the last few years, UVA transfer that I've never been that high on. He had 96 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground, but he did in 19 carries. Not sustainable as a quarterback. What surprised me the most was UConn's ability to move the ball on the ground against a usually stout NC State front. They averaged over 5 yards per play overall and rushed for 160. This was the second best unit in the ACC a week ago. Notre Dame obviously has Sam Hartman, but they have 2, possibly 3 running backs who are going to be playing on Sundays in a few years. If they can find balance, this might be a game that they blow the doors off them. I'd lay this thing all the way to double digits, but we don't have to. Sitting at 7.5 here on Saturday morning. Another one that's sitting at 7.5 and one that I might get some hate for is Utah. Utah laying 7.5 with those boys at Baylor today. What Utah showed in week 0 is I think there's a little bit more of a plug and play system at quarterback than what we might have thought. They've got not one, they don't have 2, but they have 3 guys that can play the position, which is good because Cam Rising's not coming back yet. Last week, Baylor on the other side, they ran into actually ex-NC State quarterback TJ Finley, who is now down at Texas State, and Texas State upset him. It was a 42-31, probably one of the worst losses in recent history for Baylor. That's their 5th straight loss dating back to November 5th. Dave Aranda, ex-Badger coach, love him, but another loss or 2, that seat is going to get very, very hot in Waco. I've got a unit at 7 and the hook. And in a game that I probably am going against everything that I've ever told people, I'm going to lay 38 points. I'm laying 38 for Arkansas. Arkansas against Kent State. The Golden Flash. I aired word of caution in the offseason. Sean Lewis split to become the offensive coordinator in Boulder, and their first showing against UCF was uncharacteristic of every single Sean Lewis team from the past. They allowed nearly 400 yards on the ground and got housed by 50. Now, they have to face what I've touted as probably the best backfield in college football. You could probably argue now that Colorado is going to be up there with Edwards and Sanders, but they have their own Sanders in Arkansas. They've got Raheem Sanders and KJ Jefferson. Arkansas came out and dominated in Western Carolina in week 1. KJ already has one of the top highlights of the season for those of you that saw him bounce off that blitzer. That's just what he's going to do. I don't love laying this many points, but I'm going to do it for a unit. I do like Arkansas. Another thing that I usually don't like to do, I don't like to parlay a whole lot, but I do have another 2-leg parlay for this week. Leg number 1 is Ole Miss, and Ole Miss plays Tulane in our first of 2 ranked matchups on Saturday. Ole Miss was Ole Miss in week 1. They stomped out Mercer, which I feel like they do every single year. Dart looks like he's going to fit right in with the top quarterbacks in the SEC. Quentin Judkins led the conference in rushing last year. And, oh yeah, if you missed it, Trey Harris caught 4 touchdowns last week. The team's got weapons on weapons. They got a coach that knows how to use them. Tulane, they had a wild game against Southern Alabama last week. 4th-year starting quarterback Michael Pratt. He was playing road to glory mode. 14 of 16, 294, 4 touchdowns, and added 40 on the ground. The Green Wave defense forced 5 turnovers, and if honestly I stopped talking about it and that was the whole story, you'd think they had a great game, but unfortunately it wasn't. This was a touchdown game midway through the 3rd quarter. Tulane turned the ball over 3 times on their own, and their leading rusher had only 41 yards. This is a team that's very one-dimensional. I do think Ole Miss is going to come out firing. I like Ole Miss to be the first leg, and the second leg is going to be Oregon. Oregon is a 6.5-point favorite at Texas Tech this week. The line doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's a rat line. Tech last week lost to Wyoming. Now, Oregon, they hung 81 points on poor Portland State last week, and I don't read a ton into that, but I do think it's a good second piece for the parlay. Seems as though the Ducks have got a solid run game going for Bo Nix now, so they can lean on that, so it doesn't need to be Bo all the time. But those two together, I've got a unit and a quarter on it. I think it paid out around minus 114, so definitely a solid pairing there. And to bring it home, my one college football prop of the day, Chez Mellusi of the Wisconsin Badgers, anytime touchdown at plus 120. Not a name that most of you guys are going to know. Totally fine. He's a fifth-year senior, ended up in Madison by way of Clemson. This is his third year for the Badgers, and he's been the definition of mid for the most of his career. 1,200 yards the last 2 years, under 4.5 yards per carry. It's been very boring. But in the offseason, he was challenged by not only his new coach, but also his backfield mate, Braylon Allen, to make a big step. And oh boy, does it look like he did. He showed up to camp bigger, showed up faster, running with an attitude. He had only 13 carries against Buffalo last week, had 160 yards, found the end zone twice. I think for plus money, it's a terrific prop. This Wisconsin-Wazoo game, I do think might be a little bit more of a shootout than what people are expecting. I talked about it on the podcast this week. I was hoping to get a total somewhere in the 40s, but with the new era of Wisconsin football, we're sitting in the mid to high 50s. Don't hate it, but I'm going to take Chez. So again, running through it, Chez Mellusi, anytime touchdown plus 120. We are pairing the Ducks of Oregon with Ole Miss. Arkansas laying 38 fucking points against Kansas State. That's so funny. Utah laying 7.5 at Baylor. Notre Dame also 7.5 at NC State. And then we are on the Buffs laying 3. I did miss out on the hook. That looks like it's available here this morning, but it is what it is. Good luck to everybody. We're going to have a little football content for the NFL as week 1 starts tomorrow, baby.